swooning over blueberry pie, peppers and citrus from Calabria, and buying a restaurant in a tiny, tiny town in southern Italy. This week, it's Harper and Eva from Pasta Grammar.
Traveling the world to bring you delicious dishes, tasty beverages, and interesting experiences. This is the Destination Eat Drink podcast on the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.
I'm Brent Peterson. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink. If it's your first time here, glad you're here. Destination Eat Drink is for foodies who love to travel and travelers who love to eat. And my guests this week are Harper and Eva from the wildly popular YouTube channel Pasta Grammar. But first, do me a favor, rate and review Destination Eat Drink. It just takes a few seconds to give us those 5 stars, and it really helps the podcast. And if you're thinking about a trip to Portugal or Spain in 2025, I've got a bunch of foodie travel guide ebooks available. All the best stuff to eat and drink and things to do in places like Lisbon and Porto in Portugal, Seville and San Sebastian in Spain, and many, many more. A lot of them lesser-known cities that still have delicious food and fun things to do. You can get your ebook at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink/extras. Harper and Eva are the couple behind the YouTube channel Pasta Grammar. Harper is an American and his wife Eva is Italian, and together they share Eva's amazing Italian recipes. But Pasta Grammar is so much more than just a cooking channel. They share their thoughts and experiences as Eva navigates her new life in America, while Harper gives insight on spending time in Italy with his Italian wife. And Harper and Eva have bought a former restaurant in Eva's childhood hometown in Calabria, Italy. They talk about trying to create this community space for their town and bringing visitors to this unique part of the world. Plus, they tell me why business is personal in Calabria. Okay, I'm starving, so let's eat.
Destination Eat Drink.
Harper and Eva from Pasta Grammar. Welcome to Destination Eat Drink. It's great to get to talk to you today.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
You know, the first thing I want to hop in and talk about is your channel called Pasta Grammar. This is a channel that I've been following for quite a while. We are always excited when we see a new video pop up. We're always excited to see what Eva is going to be cooking. But for folks who aren't maybe familiar with your channel, how would you describe it to folks?
It's been a bit of an evolution. I like to describe the channel as my journey of discovering through Eva and her cooking that I am obsessed with Italian food, which is something I did not think about myself before we met. But Eva shares real, authentic Italian food. Much of it is stuff that for an American like me is really unfamiliar, even though most of us think that we all know what Italian food is and what it's all about.
Would you agree with that, Eva?
Absolutely, yes. I agree most of the part of the obsession, Harper's obsession for my cooking.
I feel, Harper, that we're kind of kindred spirits because, you know, I grew up in the Midwest, but I moved to Rhode Island as a young professional, lived there for many years. That's where I met my girlfriend. She's Italian-American. And, you know, you're from New England, and you maybe know that there's a large Italian-American community in Rhode Island. And she loves to cook as well. I love to cook. And through her, I've become obsessed with Italian food, Italian cooking. And we started our journey of traveling to Italy quite a bit. Now we've landed in Portugal. So I kind of feel the same way that you do. Share with us, though, how you guys met, because, you know, you're from Maine. Eva, you're from Calabria or Campania. Which one is it?
Calabria.
Calabria. How did you guys come together?
It started when my parents, who actually, it's funny you mentioned Rhode Island, because my parents met in the Federal Hill neighborhood of Providence.
the Italian, the Little Italy part of Providence, right?
Yeah. And so my parents, as they were nearing retirement age, they started visiting Italy a lot, and in fact, they dreamt of moving there. So they would go on vacation there pretty frequently. And my mom, when they would go to Italy, she started taking Italian language lessons with Eva, who was an Italian language teacher at the time. And so they became friends. And then there was a small language school in the town I grew up in where my parents lived in Maine. And they were looking for a new Italian language teacher. And so my mom wrote to Ava and said, "Hey, would you have any interest in coming to the US for 3 months to teach Italian?" And so Ava did. And I was living in Los Angeles at the time, working in Hollywood. But it happened to be around Thanksgiving, around this time of year when Ava came to the U.S. And so I was home visiting them. And so we met at one fateful dinner where I did not make a very good impression, did I, Ava?
Absolutely not. Because while we were sharing a wonderful meal cooked by your dad, and he cooked
I think
for
it was
me.
lobster.
It was lobster, and they were so good that I still remember. Harper was just drinking this green protein shake that I will never forget in my life.
Yeah, I did not have the best relationship with food then.
No,
So I was
not at all.
I was on the protein shake diet at that point. So that was the first impression I made with Ava. But we met then and got to know each other, and the rest is history, I guess.
Ava, how did Harper turn it around? How did he convince you that he would be a good guy to spend your life with?
Because the first time that he asked me to go out with him, he brought to me a slice of blueberry pies. So this was what made me think, okay, so he's not just a protein shake guy. Maybe there is something in him.
Well, I knew you liked food, and when you're in Maine, the best food to impress someone with is blueberry pie. So
Very smart.
For folks who don't know, in Maine, they have these wild blueberries, which are completely different than the commercial big plump blueberries that you would find in the supermarket. There's these little tiny blueberries, and they are amazingly flavorful, and you can go and forage them throughout Maine, and they make obviously incredible blueberry pie.
Yeah.
I agree.
So you guys, you end up getting married, and did you move then to the States? What was, you're living in Los Angeles, Ava, you're living in Italy. How did you make it work?
Boy. The truth is we didn't make it work. We lucked out and it worked for us. When we were dating, we kept kind of going back and forth. So I would go and visit her in Italy. She would come and visit me in LA. But we quickly exhausted our travel budget trying to date across the Atlantic. And so we finally decided, okay, we either need to get married or break up. We tried breaking up. It lasted about 30 minutes. So then we decided, okay, we should get married. So we did, and we got married in Italy. But the truth is that we didn't really have a plan for what we were going to do after we got married. We hadn't even agreed, are we going to live in the US? Are we going to live in Italy?
Wow.
We sort of just went, okay, like this is the right thing to do. Let's do it. We'll figure it out later. And then we sort of continued going back and forth, trying to figure out what we were going to do. The plan was to get Ava's green card while she was still living in Italy, so that then she could come to the U.S. That was the tentative plan. But she came to the U.S. The plan was just for her to come for a few months for us to be together, and that's when COVID hit. And so Ava's flight was canceled. And because it was COVID at that time, she was sort of allowed to stay. They weren't, understandably, everything was shut down. And so that's when we just decided, like, okay, well, we're stuck here. Let's file your green card paperwork here. And so we just went ahead with that.
You guys, you kind of
live in both places. Well, I think you're mostly based in the U.S., but you spend a lot of time in Dasa, and
Yeah.
I'm wondering, Eva, because this is the town that you grew up in. How does it feel as an adult to go back there? Because I don't know that you had a plan that you were going to spend a lot of time in the town where you grew up.
No, actually no, because when I was living in Italy before I met Harper, I was living in Rome. Then I had my own school in Orvieto, so there wasn't in my plan actually to go back to Calabria. But then the fact is that after I met him and we started this journey, Calabria and Dasa seemed the best place to go and stay and show to the world what Calabria is, because everyone knows about Umbria, Tuscany, Rome, Venice, but very few people know how beautiful and how it tastes good Calabria. So we decided, okay, let's try to show the world which amazing place this is.
Did Harper's enthusiasm for Calabria fuel your enthusiasm, rekindle your enthusiasm, Eva?
Absolutely yes, because at the beginning was okay, but Harper, are you sure that we want to stay in Calabria? It's like Italy is big, it's wonderful. We have maybe also all of Europe. And I said, no, I really like it. So I said, okay.
I think for people, I've certainly seen this, people who are from there, who are from, it doesn't even have to be Calabria, but from the more rural, small towns in Italy. It's natural, just like for, those of us in America who grew up in little small towns, it's normal for the young people to want to leave and go to the big city and see the world. For them, they maybe don't really realize or appreciate how special what they have is until they leave. And I think that was the case with you to a large extent.
Right now, going back there makes me feel more home than before.
Yeah.
But
then as an outsider, when you go, because it's not just normal everyday life for you, you see how sort of special what they have there is, I think, in a way that maybe someone who's from there doesn't always recognize.
I think that's very true in a lot of different places. When we first moved to Portugal here 3 years ago, we were a bit of an anomaly. There were some Americans here. There are more now, but when we first came here, the local Portuguese would kind of look at us and smile a little bit and nod their heads, and the question was inevitably, "Why did you pick this town?" Like we like it here, but we don't understand why you would want to come here. And they're happy about it, but they're also kind of curious, like why.
I get the same thing. But what's funny is that, it's not just Eva, it's a lot of people. If you talk to younger people in Dasa, like teenagers, as I said, it's very normal for them to want to leave. But then if you start talking to some generations, people in their 30s and their 40s who had to leave, as is often the case with people in southern Italy, there aren't a lot of opportunities. And so they have to maybe move to Germany or to London for work. But they always come back every opportunity that they can. Even if they have like a weekend off and they can come back, they come back. And often when they get to the point where maybe they're retiring or something, they all come back. So it's interesting. You do see a lot of people who leave and then realize that they really miss what they had at home, and then they come back.
This all sounds very familiar to me with what we're living through right now in Portugal, because we have a lot of friends here who are from this city who went away to work other places and said, you know what, they came back in their 40s, 50s, and 60s. You guys wound up buying a restaurant in Dasa. Tell me about that experience. Like, what was it that made you think, okay, this is what I want to do? And describe the experience to me a little bit, because I think everyone has this romantic ideal of, I'm going to go to Italy, I'm going to buy a vineyard, I'm going to buy a villa, something of that nature.
Our experience is maybe a little bit different than that sort of dream, because, we bought a restaurant, but we're not really running it as a restaurant, which I think would be would be very difficult. But basically, you know, we started in, what was it, 2021?
No, 2022.
2022 we started the tours? Oh, in this hub. In 2022, we started doing this sort of, in quotes, food tour experience. It's not really a tour, but where people would come with us, a small group of travelers would come with us, and they would spend a whole week in Ava's hometown of Dessau. And the idea is that you sort of get to experience life in a small Calabrian village, and you meet all the locals, and you party with them, and you know, make music with them, and dance with them, and cook with them, and eat with them. And it was kind of a way for me to share with the world what I felt very lucky to be able to experience living in a small Italian town like that. And so we started doing that, but we obviously were hosting a bunch of people. We needed a space to use, and someone in town just happened to tell us, like, oh, there's this place that you can use. And it's right across the street from where Ava grew up, basically, but she didn't even know that it was there. And it was once a restaurant. Someone had tried to start a restaurant there, but it failed, as a lot of restaurant attempts there do, because it's just such a small, isolated town. But it was this gorgeous, gorgeous historic building in Dessau, and it was kind of the perfect place for us. It's perfect for hosting people. We have community events there. And so we bought a restaurant, but we're not running it like a restaurant, which I thank my lucky stars for every day, because that would be very difficult.
Ava, how does it feel to go back to your hometown, the place where you grew up, and now have this big project that's going on? Is it deja vu? Does it feel very much the same? Does it feel different? What's it like for you?
No, having this big project made me maybe appreciate more my people and my town, because when I was living there as a teenager, because then I moved to Rome to go to college. But when I was a teenager, okay, it's a very small town, so you feel always, I don't want to say oppressed, but a little bit seemed like oppressed. But now, when I went back as an adult with this big, beautiful project, actually, I discovered how wonderful all those people are, because they are always willing to help us. They maybe are sometimes more enthusiastic than us, because for them, having all these people coming from all over the world just to go and spend time with them is like a dream comes true. So every time that I go there, I feel this energy that before wasn't there, and makes me proud of myself, of my husband, but also of them. Because then when our guests came, they don't want to leave because they fall in love with the place, with the food, with the people. So I feel very, very proud of all this.
I'm so happy that you guys are doing this project, because when you travel around Italy, Portugal for that matter, in the interior of Portugal, all of these small towns have been depopulated. You go into the areas of Portugal, there might be, 20, 30 people left there. There might even be less. There might be even less people there, fewer people there. But you guys, when I watch these videos and see what you're doing, the energy of what is happening there, I just think this must be such a unique thing that goes on, because it's so unlike these other small towns. What is your vision? Because you guys are still in the process of working on this place. Mm-hmm. How do you see it coming together?
It keeps growing every year, which is very cool to see, because at the beginning, it was a crazy idea that I had. Nobody thought that it would work. The situation in a lot of these Southern Italian towns is so dire that people really can fall into an attitude of pretty deep pessimism and thinking that nothing can change and nothing will get better.
Yeah.
And so it was hard to convince anyone that this would work. And year after year, just by showing through example of how people really do want to come and experience what you have to offer here, every year the amount of people in town who are involved grows to the point where we now sometimes have events where literally the entire town is taking part, which is very cool. So it's growing, which is great. And what we really hope to do is to provide opportunities and employment, which we already do, to some of the younger generations in the town, especially because it is one of the reasons why these towns experience depopulation is the fact that there aren't a lot of jobs, there isn't a lot of opportunity, and so people have to leave. And it would be nice to at least create the option, or at least the spirit of, being able to do things in your homeland if you want to.
I think I watched the most recent video of you working on, I'm going to continue to call it a restaurant. I'm using air quotes here, even though you've made it clear that it's not a restaurant. But I think I saw the most recent video, and you made a point that I had never really considered before, which is in this part of Italy, business is personal. And you talked about that a little bit in the video, but I think my audience would find it interesting for you to talk about that a little bit here. What can you say about business is personal in southern Italy?
The fact is that, everything there is owned by maybe sometimes like a guy or a small family. So in our case, in my case, being from there, when, for example, we bought this restaurant and we need to start the renovation, I had to choose between friends because I know all of them. With most of them, I went to school with. So it's personal because then you need to be able to make happy everyone. Because it's hard sometimes to choose a person instead of another person and then trying to explain why you made this decision. From this point of view, I know that maybe a situation like America is a little bit easier because you go online, you find a person, you call, it's just a matter of I give you this amount of money, you do for me this job. Over there, money sometimes doesn't really matter because it's the relationship between people, the most important thing. Always I tell Harper, maybe sometimes in the side you can have all the money of the world, but if you don't get close to people, they don't want your money. While if you get close to them, they are willing to help you without being paid. For them, it's not a matter of money. For them, it's a matter of relationship, of friendship, of respect.
Yeah, it's a real double-edged sword because on the one hand, obviously there's convenience in what I'm more used to, which is you call a number in the yellow pages or that you find online, you hire someone, it's some stranger, but it's just a simple exchange of money and services. There's obviously convenience in that, but there's also a huge advantage to a place where everything is personal, and so every person and you're friends with them, and that can make things more complicated if you're not used to that. But it also means that there's a huge amount of trust between people. And, I've seen it with our own renovations, people really going above and beyond and treating our project like it's their project as well, and treating it like it's their home, so it can be difficult, but there are also some advantages to it.
I would just be worried. This is me being pessimistic, and I probably shouldn't be, but I would just be worried that if the project somehow goes sideways, I'm going to have to fire a friend, or I'm going to have to, I might lose a friendship over this business thing. I might be preferring to have a stranger work on my house.
Yeah.
Am I being crazy?
No, that is the downside, is that you need to walk a tightrope sometimes. But it just sort of depends on how you look at it.
You mentioned earlier the tours that you guys do. You bring folks to Dessau and you let them experience what life is like there, and you experience Eva's food. How often do you guys do those tours?
We do we have a couple of different tours that we offer. One is just called the Pastagrammer Tour, and that's kind of a more traditional tour. We travel through southern Italy, and then we have the Week in Dessau, which, as I said, is all spent in Ava's hometown. And each of those we do twice a year. So we do 4 tours a year, 2 in the spring and 2 in the fall.
And I would imagine folks can find out about that at your website. We'll have a link to that. I did want to talk about a series of videos that you guys do. And Eva, I love this one where you call them An Italian Tries American Food. And since you didn't grow up in America, I'm very curious about this, Eva. Tell me about the experience of trying American food. Specifically, let's take a look at it from the lens of, was there anything that you tried that you thought, oh, I'm probably going to hate that, but you ended up liking it?
Okay, so what I can say is that, okay, in Italy, right now, maybe the situation is a little bit different because people, they can travel, the world became a very small place. So also in Italy right now, you can find food from all over the world. But growing up, for us, the food was just the Italian food. So my only burger until I came here, for me, was the McDonald's. So that was the standard. Now, when I came here, okay, for example, when Harper made me try the pizza, I knew that I couldn't like the pizza. Not because I'm a pizza snob, but because pizza has some rule. So other things, like, for example, that then maybe they didn't end up actually in a video, like, for example, the American barbecue. I'm not a meat lover, so I don't really care about meat. But when I tried the American barbecue, I said, okay, this is the way in which meat should be cooked. So maybe between all, I would say American barbecue. This became one of my favorite food right now.
There are also some ingredients that, like, for instance, blueberries are a good example.
Blueberries, I always hated blueberries in Italy because they were very, very sour. When I went to Maine, I discovered that I love blueberries because they are kind of like candies. Or, for example, squash. I always hated squash in my life. When I came here to US, I learned that I love them to death. So I can't live without squash anymore.
Do you cook? Do you cook with squash now, Eva?
A lot.
A lot, yeah.
And actually, I made also my mother, who never liked squash, to love squash. So,
what's one of your favorite squash recipes to make for Harper?
One of my favorite is a Sicilian recipe that is the sour sweet squash. So you take a very good butternut squash, kombucha squash. You cut in slice, then you fry in olive oil, and then you season with some vinegar, sugar, and mint. Let it marinate for about, 5 hours, 6 hours. More is better, and then you enjoy. And it's something that it's unbelievable.
It's really, yes, very good.
Sounds delicious. Yeah, I love squash. Oh man, the one that I love that we used to get in New England all the time, and we can't find it here in Portugal, is the delicata squash, and it's so tender, man. You can even eat the skin. It's so good.
Yeah.
I use squash here in America because I'm a big chestnuts lover, and here in America I can't find chestnuts. So I decided that my new chestnuts here in America became the squash because sometimes they taste the same.
Yeah, the weather's cold now in Europe, so it is chestnut season, and all the chestnut vendors in our town they're out doing it. We live right across the street from a school, and not even across the street, across a little sidewalk from a school. And usually this time of year, they'll bring the chestnut vendor right in front of the school, and they'll bring each class out, 20 kids at a time, and they'll be sitting on the sidewalk with their little cone of chestnuts, and it's one of my favorite things this time of year. Harper, talk to me a little bit about some of your favorite dishes that Eva makes. You talked about the squash. What else does she make that you find particularly mouthwatering?
That's hard. I don't even know where to begin. A lot of people, who watch our videos, they like to joke that every dish that I try is my favorite dish in that moment. Uh, I think probably if I were to say what I think, okay, so like for instance, if we have guests over and I really want to show off what my wife can do and really blow them away, I ask her to make her lasagna alla bolognese.
Mm.
It is phenomenal. It's the kind of lasagna that every single person who tries it goes, "Oh, I've never had a lasagna until today."
Wow.
So if I had to sort of pick one, if I were to introduce Ava to an alien race and I had one dish to impress them with, it would be lasagna alla bolognese.
Folks who know about Italian food know that there's Italian American food, and then there's real Italian food. And I think you're in kind of a unique position in that you're an Italian, but now you have an American husband, you live in America. And I'm wondering, are there any Italian American dishes that you've found that you've kind of converted on? Because I think in a way, well, I don't want to tell you what to think, but I feel like sometimes Italians might turn up their noses a little bit at the Italian American dishes. And I'm wondering if there's anything that you found that you thought, hey man, that's not so bad after all.
Yes, because, okay, for us, it's obvious that when someone talks about Italy, we are very proud of our food. So if someone comes to an Italian and say with the classical spaghetti and meatball, this is Italian, yes, we start to complain and say, no, this is not Italian. We start all the tragedy and blah, blah, blah. The fact is that when an Italian, then we come here to US, we start to learn that actually, as you said, that is not Italian food. That is Italian American food that has its own, place in the world. I was lucky to try some of their recipes. I cooked some also by myself, rely obviously on other recipes from people from YouTube or cookbook. And I need to say that one that I was completely impressed, it was the stromboli. The stromboli, maybe because I love pizza, I love bread. So when I made the first time the stromboli, I said, okay, this is not Italian, but this is good. It's actually right now is one of my favorite, as we say in Italy, cibo da rosticceria, which will be the food that you can buy like in a small place, a sort of street food. Right now is one of my favorite. Another one that I really liked, because I love fish, is the cioppino. I really like the cioppino. See, so those two, for me, they are as good as the Italian version, if we can talk about an Italian version, or maybe also better.
Now, in your part of Calabria, Eva, what are there any fruits or vegetables that the area is particularly known for, and how would these express themselves in dishes?
Absolutely. In Calabria, we have what we call the gold of Calabria, which is the bergamotto. And is a citrus that you can just find, for example, in Calabria, and is used to make juice, to make dessert, to make candied fruit.
A lot of it is shipped to France for perfume.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Then we have, spicy pepper. In my opinion, even if I live now very close to Mexico, I still think that the Calabrian pepper has a unique flavor, unique taste. It's spicy, but it has also a lot of flavor. So actually, when you eat, you don't feel just the heat. You taste the flavor of the peppers. And we in Calabria, we do everything with peppers. Actually, we could put peppers also in our milk in the morning or in our coffee if we could. So those are for sure maybe the two most important ingredients that they are unique to Calabria. Absolutely. Pepper and bergamot.
Well, Harper and Eva from Pasta Grammar, this has been delightful. And we'll definitely have a link to your channel, to your website, to your cookbook, so that folks can see all of that stuff and get in touch with you when they're ready to buy a book and do a tour in Calabria. This has been a great conversation. Thank you so much for taking the time, and hope to see you guys in Calabria real soon.
Thank you, Brent.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. We appreciate it.
Okay, that's Harper and Eva from Pasta Grammar. What a lovely couple they are. You can find them at youtube.com/pastagrammar and at pastagrammar.com. Kind of makes you want to throw it all away and buy an abandoned restaurant in Calabria, doesn't it? And if you want to hear more of my interview with Harper and Eva, become a member of my Substack. I have extended interviews with lots of my guests, including Harper and Eva, and you can get that at destinationeatdrink.substack.com. Well, that's it for this week. Next week, it's all about desserts and sweets. Valentine's is coming up after all. We'll enjoy a pastel de nata competition, beignets in New Orleans, and treats made by nuns in Sicily. Don't miss that. Until then, I've got lots of new foodie travel content for you to check out. My latest video is out. It's about the 5 best pastries in Portugal. Speaking of pastries, it was certainly tough to choose my favorite 5, but you can see what I picked by clicking on the video tab at destinationeatdrink.com or going to my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/@destinationeatdrink946. Check out the video. See if you agree with me. I also published a brand new foodie travel guide to Peniche in Portugal. This is a place with some great sweets to try, including one shaped like a sewing bobbin of all things. There's also a boat trip from Peniche you may want to take on an island that looks something out of Game of Thrones. Get that Peniche Foodie Travel Guide ebook at buymeacoffee.com/destinationeatdrink/extras. Destination Eat Drink is distributed by the Radio Misfits Podcast Network and Ed Silla. Thanks, Ed. I'm Brent Peterson. I'll see you down the road.
Join us next week for another culinary adventure on Destination Eat Drink, a presentation of the Radio Misfits Podcast Network.